the real game is not that you had to be the fastest or strongest or the most chiseled abs or what have you. The real game was that you had to not quit. You had to put out 100% no matter what they asked of you, to where even if you passed out or whatever, they just pick you up on a stretcher and haul you out, right? But they're like, we want that guy, even though he passed out. We want him. And so I figured out that's really the game. The game was not being first. It's good to be first. It pays to be a winner. But the game was not first. The game is don't ever quit.
Welcome to the Ed O'Keefe Show. Transform your mind, accelerate your business, energize your body, and inspire the world. Now here is your host, Ed O'Keefe.
Hey everybody, it's Ed O'Keefe, and welcome to another episode of the Ed O'Keefe Show. Today I have a very special guest, Navy SEAL Brad McLeod. Brad is a gentleman who I met through my training with Mark Devine at SEAL Fit and Kokoro Camp. Brad is one of the master coaches over at SEAL Fit and runs a great website called SEAL Grinder PT. That's SEALGrinderPT.com, where you can see all the exercises Brad does to stay in ridiculously amazing shape and to forge incoming BUDS candidates or special operations candidates to prep them properly for BUDS or any other kind of special operations units for their training. The other thing that's really cool about Brad, just one more note on his background, is he went through Hell Week twice. I'll let him tell the story because I think you'll really, really like it. And he's a quiet guy who, if you're in the room with him, you would be... he's very subtle, let's just put it that way. You might not even know he's there, but when he speaks, every word matters. Very humble. We've become friends, and he really is a guy doing great things for people and very unselfishly. This recording that you're about to listen to is me interviewing him at my latest One Day Time Collapsing event here in Chicago. On that note, we are our first seminar, first mega event on time collapsing, how to create more money, power, control, and freedom very, very rapidly, will be in October. And on that lineup, we have Jesse Itzler, some of my good friends, Vinny Fisher, Roland Frazier, and I have more and more people signing up daily to be a part of that event. That it'll be really something really powerful and unique. So I hopefully you can make it. That's October 11th, 12th, and 13th. You can check that out at edokeefeshow.com/event. And by the time I have this out, we should have a button up there that says the event. So anyhow, I hope you love it. Please comment. Please share with people. This is... what I was going to say was Brad also is a guy who works with people looking to do rucks, the Go Ruck challenges, Spartan challenges, any of the SEAL Fit academies, because there's a totally different training that's required when you're doing a very endurance plus durability training that also requires strength, and Brad's the guy who can really gut you through that. So I asked him in this interview how come he became the what they call like the whisperer, like the anytime people are looking to quit, they go to Brad to whisper in their ears. And all the coaches are amazing, but if someone's like on the brink of quitting, Brad is one of those guys who's been known to turn people around pretty quickly. So you hear how he does it. It's a pretty awesome thing. So that's it. I hope you enjoy this interview with me and Brad McLeod. Take care.
Long story condensed is that, I was 19. I saw a military recruiting flyer for, the Navy SEALs. And, I had no clue what I wanted to do in life, but I don't know why. I just saw that as kind of like, the farm kid in Kansas sees a picture of Mount Everest. And as far-fetched as that is, or like you see the movie stars on Hollywood, the kid in Nebraska says, hey, I want to do that. And as far-fetched as that was, and everyone laughed at me, I just said, hey, that looks really cool. Why not go for it? I mean, what I'm doing right now is not working out, So I just threw all my chips in the, whatever you say. I gambled everything. I signed up way my life to the Navy for 6 years. And I got on a bus and went to San Diego and started the training there. And it was against all odds, but long story short with that is that I went into the training, went through Hell Week, went through second phase, the pool comp where they tie you up. And unfortunately, actually someone just passed away day before yesterday in that same style of training. It's pretty rugged. But I made it past that, and I failed a math test of all things. And they're really incredibly strict on all the guidelines. And, you know, the attrition rate is, for our class, it was like 130 guys down to 16. So the attrition rate's about 85, 88% or something crazy. So anyway, I went to the fleet for a year, and I worked as a regular sailor. I was swabbing the decks and working in the chow hall. And I finally broke free and came back the second time, and I went all the way back through the second time. And I finally made it.
How did you mentally, what kind of mental, like, I think there's probably a couple questions here, but.
Yeah.
And the second time going through Hell Week, I mean, how many, you know, that had to be, what mental strategy did you put in your head to be like, boom, I'm gonna go kill this again?
Yeah.
And attack it?
Yeah, well, a couple of things is, you know, growing up, I really had no athletic background. I was never on any team. I was a skateboarder of all things, so I was kind of independent, sort of renegade, run kind of edge stuff, and maybe that helped me with the SEAL training some, but I never read any positive mental attitude books. I never read about warrior culture, you know, Tony Robbins, any of that. I had no clue what NLP was, and so, but, you know, I went there to that training, and, you know, they don't coddle you along, as you can imagine. They're putting a water hose in your face and trying to make you quit. But what was interesting, I found out, is that instructors would walk along the side of the grinder, the older guys, you know, the senior chiefs, guys that were in their 30s. And occasionally they would throw out kind of these nuggets or what have you and just say things. And, you know, you're there, you're under pressure, you're getting a water hose shoved down your throat, and, you know, all these things are going on around you, and you just kind of have these moments where, I guess you'd say, like galvanized, you know, you're under, what is it, you know, you're like getting shaped, like a sword, you're getting shaped. You don't realize it, you have no clue, but they're shaping you to be what they want you to be. They want you to be a warrior who will not quit. And so, you know, I had these senior level instructors would say things I'd never heard before in my whole life. So these things are galvanized into me, and I also figured out there was a game inside the game. And here it is, I'm 19 years old, you know, I don't know about games inside of games, but I figured out that, like, the real game is not that you had to be the fastest or strongest or the most chiseled abs or what have you. The real game was that you had to not quit. You had to put out 100% no matter what they asked of you, to where even if you passed out or whatever, they just pick you up on a stretcher and haul you out, right? But they're like, we want that guy, even though he passed out, we want him. And so I figured out that's really the game. The game was not being first. It's good to be first. It pays to be a winner. But the game was not first. The game is don't ever quit. And so once I figured out that game, see, I first got there, I was like, man, I had such a lack of confidence, because here it is, I'm 5'8", you know, I weigh about the same as I did then, 170. I'm not some big, you know, 6'2" chisel warrior, and there's all these other guys around me that are like, they're lettermen, they're, you know, they've done all this stuff in track, they're like honor man, they've, or, you know, valedictorian in school, they have these high scores on the SATs and ASVAB. And so I'm surrounded with all these other guys, 130-something guys, and I'd made it sort of like to NFL camp, you know, I was at camp. And so I was like, you know, but I had to, once I started figuring out day by day, guys started quitting. And I was like, how come this guy over here quit? He's a 6'2" chisel warrior, but, you know, he blows me away on the running and obstacle course and all this other stuff. But I figured out he didn't want it bad enough. He didn't have a why. And so, like, you know, I guess, you know, with anything in life, especially there, they test your why to the nth degree, to where, you know, they'll make you pass out. And so I knew my why. I was like, oh, my why is huge. You know, it gives me like chill bumps to even talk about it right now. It's so big, you know, and even to today, that's what drives me forward. It put me in a car to drive here from Florida, you know. And So my why was so huge. I said in my mind, I didn't vocalize to anyone else. I didn't have to. I just said, the only way I'm going out is on a stretcher. I mean, I will stay here because my why is so big. And so once I started figuring that out, I'm not going to say that made it any easier. It just made it where I didn't quit. And I'm not going to sit here and lie and say, some guys say, I never thought about quitting. Well, bullshit. I thought about quitting a lot. But there's a huge difference between saying you're going to quit in your mind and thinking, this sucks, or my body hurts, or whatever, and actually taking a step forward and then taking another step forward and actually going forward and ringing the bell. So there's a chasm there. I can't speak for you guys, but as entrepreneurs, I would think, some days shit's not working out, right? And that you guys are, maybe you've had a lot of upsets and a lot of problems. I can't remember the one young man earlier. You said there was a lot of things going on with your business in the last year or what have you. And maybe we think about quitting. Maybe you're a better man than me, and you don't think about quitting. But the point is, I had a line in the sand, and I knew I couldn't cross that line. I couldn't stand up and step forward and say, I want to quit. Because once then, there's no going back. They don't try to talk you in. Like immediately you get picked out as the runt in the litter, and you're immediately shoved to the side. They want the guy, the pit bull, that will fight till he passes out. That's the guy they want. You see what I'm saying? So anyway, that's in a nutshell of what, it was a major life lesson right there that I learned, and I didn't really know it at 19. You're getting all these things, forced at you with a fire hydrant, drinking out of a fire hydrant, right? It's getting forced at you and galvanized into you. You don't even have time to process it. But later on in life, you come back and you reflect. I'm obviously a lot older now. I'm in my early 50s, but those are the same things that I
thought
use.
You were my age, man.
I got a little bit of gray right here, But those are the things that was able to get me through the recession. As a point, I was looking at the black hole and, thinking, wow, I'm going to lose my house, a bunch of real estate, my house and my job, and I had to go back to baby steps of those same things that I learned there. So really, it was a lesson, and that's where people start asking me all these questions about buzz, and I start talking about it, and really just trying to relay what I learned there. It's like, yes, you're probably never going to have a water hose stuck down your throat, or you're never going to have to put a mine underneath a ship at night, or have people shooting over your head. But in real life, it's really the same thing, because you're dealing with traffic. You're dealing with, I'd say traffic as in like car traffic. You're dealing with the daily grind. You're dealing with family. You're dealing with business partners. You're dealing with banks. Those are all that same grind. It was just a different medium that I was in. It's the same thing. You guys are dealing with the same thing. And so I go talk to groups around the country, around the world, and that's my message, is that what I did, I'm just an average guy that decided to stand up and not quit. And I'm no different than anybody else. And I just try to breathe that life into everybody else around me, is that, if I can do it, go through Navy SEALs, you can, I don't even know what my potential is. It's like, could be, there's so much out there that can be done. You just have to say, I will not quit. It's a lot of it, so.
Yeah, cool. What's a question that you get a lot of questions, obviously, especially when people even discover Kokoro or buds, so you probably get a ton of questions of that. What's a question that they don't ask, but they should be asking?
That they don't ask?
Yeah, when people, they're asking what would be the right question to ask you about what SEAL training was like? Or becoming a SEAL and an operator? It
kind of ties into what I was just talking about, is that it's, occasionally someone will ask it, but it's very rare, is that they'll say, not very rare, but it's not asked enough, is that what was the hardest part? And they expect me to say, Hell Week was the hardest, or drown proofing was the hardest. That's what, unfortunately, the young lad died 2 days ago doing. and or they think, it's pool comp, or it's dealing with, live fire, ammunition, what have you. And really, I would say it's just the overall daily grind. It's, going to bed at 10:30, waking up being on the grinder at 4:30, and you still had to get all your clothes washed and your uniform pressed and all that. So you're dealing with, 5 hours of sleep a night, but you're doing 16, 18-hour days. Really no different. A lot of you guys are saying, yeah, that's what I do as an entrepreneur. And so that's what I relay it back to, is to say, a lot of people think it's that one single thing that's the hardest thing, but really in the end, it was like accumulation of a lot of things that had a gradual drag on you. And I see the same thing and say, when I went into the business world, is that, there was really not any one thing that say was hard, but it was accumulation of a lot of things. Getting a business plan, talking to a bank, renting a space, getting new clients, getting in the car, driving long distance, traveling, being away from your family, going to bed late, waking up early, doing tasks you don't want to do, but you got to do them anyway. It's just really the same thing.
Yeah.
And so I think not enough people ask that question. They want to think it's that one big thing, and it was really accumulation. For me, it was all things together.
Yeah, like after Kokoro camp, I remember it was like day 2 or something like that. I don't know. It was, you're wet a lot, and I remember I'm like, man, I think in my next lifetime, I'm definitely going to go into Delta, because this wet stuff isn't for me. I was able to go, and then someone told me well, Delta guys get wet too, Ed. I'm like, oh shit, all right, I'm thinking. Yeah. But I left there with much more appreciation for. It's easy to trick your brain to be like, all right, cool, we can do this for 51 hours, and then I'm done. That was something I left with, where I was like, man, these guys do this for not only 6 months of training, but that's only the beginning of it. And I remember Coach James at one point said to me, when we were in the van, and he was like, I've been much colder being in the teams, doing training up in Norway in the ocean or whatever, than Hell Week or anything like that. What is your I got 2 questions for you. What is one or two of the coolest things from that you've seen people endure through, in either Kokoro and Hell Week or while on the teams?
The cooler things, I'd say maybe just enduring the jungle. We went through jungle training down in the islands in the Caribbean, which sounds really lovely. And it is if you're on a beach with a lawn chair and you have a cerveza next to you and you got your feet in the water. But if you're out on an island, which typically will not get sprayed for mosquitoes, and you've also got a ton of rats, and you've got every kind of snake or what have you that's slithering down a tree on you, and then also they take away your food, and on and on and on. You start adding all those things up. And I would say probably, going through jungle training, I think would probably be out in the actual teams.
Yeah.
I would think that would be probably, because you come out of that and you're like, it looks like, what's that, the show Naked and Afraid or whatever. That's what you look like when you come out of there. Even though you've got, we've got the DEET and we've got long pants, but, a lot of it, you get out and you're operating and you're going from island to island. They give you a mission that you have to do. You don't just go sit on the island and wait to get picked up. And so, the bug spray wears off and you get stung by stingrays and you've got, all this other, all the jellyfish, whatever. You got all these other things going on. So you come out of that and you're pretty wrung out. So I'd say probably a week long in the jungle would be probably one of the things,
Wow.
So, yeah.
What you're known as on some of the Kokoro videos, what do they call you, the whisperer or something like that? If a guy's about to quit, they're like, you send Coach Brad to go be the last one to talk to him, because I get to what's really interesting is that talking about the game side of the game. What I thought was cool, who scared me the most was Coach Curtis.
Yeah.
Because he was just so quiet, and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
like bad things would happen.
Yeah. And those are the guys you got to
Like
be scared
Coach Smith, it was like
all bad all
he's
the
a
time.
fiery African American dude, total badass, and you knew what you were getting. Like it was going to be a blaze, and you know, and that was cool. But then Coach Curtis was, oh fuck, what you got? Okay, yeah, no problem. But it was So when someone's on the verge of quitting, because I think this applies to everything. So where do you try and go inside their heart, spirit, psyche to pull out that, man, maybe I can do this, or let me get one step in the right direction, because then momentum might take over?
Yeah, I mean, 2 weeks ago I used that with a young boy, he's about 15 years old. After about the first hour, he was a wet rag. He was blubbering. He was, wanted to go home to his mom. And it was bad. And I knew I had my work cut out for me, but I said, hey, I can do this. As a coach, I saw that as, as...
You said it to yourself inside your own head. I'm like, I can do this.
I can do this. For me, that's a challenge to talk somebody back into it after they've, what was it? They showed Muhammad Ali kidding the other guy. When this guy's completely on the mat, how do you get that guy up? And it's one thing to do it with an adult, because a lot of times the adult, I say a lot of times, not always, but a lot of times the adult has control of their emotions or what have you, and they have some things, some anchor points that they can go back to. With a 15-year-old young boy, you got your work cut out for you. So really from there, I just use the old, take one step at a time. I said, I actually can't. I don't tell them that. I said, can you do this for me? Can you take one step forward? And you get them to nod their head. I mean, that's an old sales type thing. Can you agree on one thing? Can we agree on one thing? You can take one step forward. And they do. They say yes. I say, okay. And if they waver, which has happened before, I'll actually pick their boot up. And and I'm not completely trying to pacify them and coddle them, but it is my job as a coach in Kokoro to extract and to bring out the very best that I can in an athlete. And so that's probably one of the first things is find something that you can agree on and move them forward. And that's what you would call progress. So we do that again and again. And a lot of times they'll take one. In fact, this kid, he took almost a half step forward and then he went back a full step. So, that's kind of what we were dealing with there. It took me 30 minutes, and we talked him back in. The one issue you'll have with that is sometimes you can get a guy back in a fight or a gal back in. A lot of times it's not the women that quit. I'll say that. A lot of times just you. Granted, our courses are 80% male, but most of the time the women very rarely quit. It's a whole nother side discussion, but with him, I worked on. I try to hit on the emotional side, talking to him about. I said, "Do you have brothers? Do you have a sister? Do you have a parent?" And so I use almost it's a visualization tool, but you would say, hey, what if your dad was here right now? How would your dad want to see you? And so I get them inside a view, a good view, and say, your dad, I'd say, and they'd start nodding his head, what have you, say, your dad would want to see you succeeding, right, and finishing this course. I mean, think about how proud you would be and your dad would be of you right now if you could finish that course. And then from there, you just begin to breathe light into them and say, I can see it right now. At the end of this course, the sun's going to be shining. I'm going to be shaking your hand. We're going to be, eating a hot dog, hamburger, not drinking a cold beer with him. But that's typically, usually by the time you say beer, they're like, you get a little flutter in the eye right there. So, but no, you just talk them through it. Literally, it's a visualization thing. And you tie into that emotion. And I know for me, I talked about earlier about my why. My why is just off the charts, crazy for my family. And that all I wanted to do is my mom and dad and my brothers to be proud of me. And if they say that to me, I mean, literally, I get like chill bumps, because that's all I wanted in life. And so for me to go to Navy SEALs and quit or whatever, it's just not, It's not going to happen. You definitely would have to cart me off. And so for him, I can't get inside I'm trying to get inside his head. I don't know him, but I just use that as I know that's a super powerful tool when you talk about other members that they love. And so it's kind of I don't know all the exact fancy terms maybe that Tony Robbins has, but you're giving him anchor points. You're giving him things to visualize and think about, and you're touching on that emotion. If you can touch on that emotion and you can bring them forward a little bit, that's a huge win.
This episode is sponsored by Marine D3. If you want 24-hour antioxidant protection while giving your brain, eyes, heart, and overall energy a jolt of long-lasting nourishment, then Marine D3 is for you. This is my number one top-selling health product that I've sold over 500,000 bottles, and right now, 80% of our sales come from repeat customers. Marine D3 can flood your cells with an abundance of new antioxidants and nutrients that fights and repairs damage done to the cells during exercise, everyday living, and the natural breakdown that occurs as we age. After 15 years of research and over $39 million spent on clinical studies, a renowned biochemist has found one of the world's greatest antioxidants. It's called CNLP, hiding deep below the ocean's surface. I took CNLP, combined it with a little-known omega-3 called calamine, as well as vitamin D3, so that you can get maximum benefit all in one supplement. I'd like to give you the first bottle absolutely free. I just ask that you pay shipping and handling. At edokeefeshow.com/free bottle, I'll have a mini presentation that will share more about the supplement and why people are raving about it. Most importantly, it'll show you exactly how you can get it shipped out to you today, just for shipping and handling. This episode is brought to you by Dormant Forces Insider. If you would like monthly big business breakthroughs, insider marketing strategies that actually work, and mindset secrets of multimillionaires sent directly to your door so you can have it in your hands and you can apply them, then this is for you. Now, you can test drive my Dormant Forces Insider Silver membership for just 1 month free. If you love it, we know you'll stay with it and let it keep you in the loop of what's working inside my businesses and the other dozens and dozens of businesses that I mentor. Why would you go at it all on your own when you can use other people's experience than just replicate what works? Anyhow, right now you can test drive the membership for just $1 plus a few bucks shipping and handling by going to edokeefeshow.com/dormant forces. That's edokeefeshow.com/dormant forces.
And thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the podcast. You can find the show notes for this episode as well as all the other podcast episodes by heading on over to edokeefeshow.com. If you would, please go subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and leave a rating and review. Rating and reviews truly are the best way for you to show your appreciation for the show because they help more people find out about the podcast and decide if this is the one for them. So until next week, it's time for you to go out there, take action, and inspire the world.